Hey, are you ready to go supersonic? Are you ready to be the best version of you that you can be? Well, check this out. God didn't get you this far just to give up on you. There's something you need to know though. There's a blessing in the lesson. Another thing I want you to know is that you found the right broadcast, you found the right place. Let's journey this together. Hey, yo, what's up? This is PD. I'm about to go ahead and post an interview I did earlier. I wanted to get a different perspective on what the next generation thought about identity or what it meant to be that type of person or to be authentic. So I interviewed Tanner Samuels, who is my son, but I believe he gives a good perspective on what identity means to him. Yo, go ahead, check it out. Hey, what's up, everybody? This is PD. I'm always talking about identity, and today I've got a different twist, a different aspect of identity from a younger perspective. This is actually my son's, for those that don't know, but he is at the understanding that he is free to answer the questions to the best of his ability and without any judgment or threats from me in that aspect, I guess you can look at. So let's continue. Let's go on from there. Let's move forward. Let's see identity from the younger generation's perspective. Tanner, I want to thank you so much for being interviewed today. So let's get started. I don't want to take up too much time, but let me ask you a question. Who is Tanner?
Um, I'm not sure, to be honest with you. I feel like that's a process that I've been going on for a long time. Every day I'm discovering more about myself. Uh, I'm on the path to discovering who I am, just daily. I go through different trials, tribulations, and it's constantly telling me like, all right, so this is who you are. This is where you need to adjust here. The military is a big example of that for me. I joined the military back in 2018, as you remember. Uh, and when I went through basic training, I was appointed as a Bay leader. I was not the best at all by any means. I was a terrible leader. And looking back at that now, from what I've learned, I know that a lot of what I did was just like was just it came from a place of like, all right, I was given power. I need to exercise that power instead of like, what does an actual leader need to be? What do people look for in a leader? How can I adjust myself as a leader? But the thing is like every single day growing up, I was told, you're a leader, not a follower. You're this, you're this, you're this, you're that. And so when I went to basic, getting that, getting that label of, hey, you're the Bay leader, I took it to mean like, all right, well, I'm a natural leader. That's it. And that wasn't true at all. I mean, I might be a natural leader. I'm not denying that by any means. However, being a natural anything isn't always good enough for the occasion. Like, I'm a great writer. I know that. However, I need to practice and expand my craft. Um, I might have leader characteristics and qualities, but I need to expand that craft. And during this recent training session that we had a couple weeks back, I was given the opportunity to be a team leader and to act as a sergeant. And I got to leave. I got to lead a live team fire as if I was a sergeant, and that was really awesome from my perspective because it let me know that I was growing and I was developing in that leadership aspect. And that's just a small part of my identity, however. I look at myself and I see a lot of things. I definitely see a lot of your qualities as my father inside of me. I see a lot of that. However, I know that there's also the me side where I've deviated and found my own path. I know that I'm intelligent. I know that I'm a writer. I know that I'm a leader. I know that I know a lot of things, but there's also a lot of things that I don't know, and a lot of things that I'm trying to work on. Like I said, it's a path, it's a process. There's constant development there. I'm not just one set in stone thing. It's consistently changing and consistently smoothing out as I grow older.
So what I'm hearing from you outside of that is that life is a series of puzzles. In that interim, you are finding yourself. You're learning how to adjust in
Yeah,
many areas. And so you are you're growing. You're learning and you're adjusting to be the best version of you that you can be. And
yeah,
military is truly helping you with that, is what I understand.
yeah, very
Um,
much.
they're not just giving you an identity, but they're also, from what it sounds like, they're giving you the aspect of being able to build that identity from ground up, from what you're saying. What I would like to say to people is that it's so true, because we have people that try to build our identities for us. They tell us who and what we are, but what we have to realize is that someone else's idea of who we are, their reality, is not our foundation. Um, so I guess as I would ask that, I mean, that's phenomenal that that's happening that way for you, that you're finding yourself, that you're growing, knowing that you have so much more potential ahead of you. Do let me say this, that you have so much more inside of you than what you are grabbing or attempting to push forward. But let me ask you this: what does identity mean to you?
Um, Identity has a lot of meanings to me. I wrote some things down saying when I read this question for you that you gave to me, I was thinking identity is very important. I look at identity as a key. I think back to the movie Black Panther. You and I love Marvel, always going to Marvel movies together. But I think back to a very specific moment in Black Panther when Killmonger stepped into King T'Challa's throne, and he was looking around, looking at everything, and he was asked the question. Well, he was actually forcing T'Challa to ask him ask me who I am. He said, ask me who I am. And
That's good.
T'Challa was like, no, no. And one of the council members in his language, he asked, "Who are you?" And he responded, I am Njaka, Prince of Njobu." And he said it with authority. He said it with power. And the way he said it was like, I deserve to be here. This is who I am. You know the name. You know who this was. So in that aspect, his authority follows through me, regardless of if he's here or not. His authority follows through me. It's like when Jesus would always say, well, Jesus never, from what I remember in the Bible, never directly stated like I am the Son of God. Uh, from when I was going through my religion classes, I never read anywhere where he directly stated like this is like I am the Son of God. There's probably one part. However, um, people had to figure out like who he was. It was through that like my bad, I'm stuttering. However, um, with that authority, he said Jesus still walked with authority. Jesus still knew exactly who he was, stating, stating like, stating for Lazarus to walk out of the grave, stating for people to be healed. He spoke with authority. He knew who he was, and even for Killmonger, just stating with authority, knowing who he was, knowing that authority follows him because of who precedes him. Even for you, like there's been multiple times that you've put me in charge of Brianna, my little sister, when y'all leave. That same authority that you hold is given to me whenever I watch her, and she understands that. It's a key in a sense. If I were to walk into somebody's house and started barking orders, people would look at me like, "Who are you? Like, why? No, get out of my house." I'd either be, depending on where I am, I'd be shot, arrested, something would happen. But the point of me saying that is that I would be removed from the area because my identity was not the right key that showed people that I belong in that area. If I were to walk into another place in my armory, um, into another unit, there's multiple units at my armory. You've got Echo Company, you've got Delta Company, and then you've got Bravo. I'm a part of Bravo. If I were to walk over to Delta and start telling random privates what to do, they'd look at me and be like, Who
Mm-hmm.
are you? I don't know you. I don't have to listen to you. And with good reason, because my identity, who I am, is not a key that guides access or grants access to that area and does not give me authority in that area. Um, Killmonger was exercising his authority. And when he revealed his identity, it sparked reactions of astonishment within the room. Everyone was gasping because, again, they recognized the name. They recognized that there was that sense of authority because it followed. If he's the son of this person, that same authority runs through him based off of the system that they set up. I also, I also wrote, just the moral of the statement is that I wouldn't be welcome in somebody's random house because of my identity. I wouldn't be welcome in Delta Company because of my identity. I would need the access. My identity would require. Uh, hold on, my bad, my bad. I wrote. Uh, I wrote. I wouldn't be welcome because my identity doesn't match the required identity needed to access the place that I'm trying to be.
Okay.
Again, my identity is, I'm growing, I'm developing. There's a process in my identity in trying to find myself. And that process is granting me access to these different parts and pathways so that I can officially authoritate this is who I am.
Okay.
I'm going to college for writing. I can't, back like 2 years ago, I couldn't walk into some random company and be like, hey, I want to write a TV show for you. I couldn't. Even now, I can't, but I'm a little further along because I'm gaining that authority to be able to walk in and say, I am a writer. I am a great writer. I want to be able to do this because X, Y, and Z. I'm making my pathway. Um,
So what
I
I'm
also,
hearing in
go ahead.
there is an aspect of consistency. And what I hear is that um, regardless of the point of where you stand or where you're at, that consistency is what continues to push forward. But what I really wanted to bring out was that, I taught a message and I did one on Facebook, and it's about keys to the kingdom. In Matthew, God says that I give you the keys to the kingdom. With these keys, no man, whatever door you open, no man can shut. Whatever door you shut, no man can open. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's the gist of that scripture. But um, keys, we have to understand what keys are, and keys give us authority.
Yeah,
Keys give us authorization. Keys are what allows us access to things. And so what you're saying is your identity. And when we find our identity, that our identity gives us these keys, our identity gives us authority, our identity gives us access, our identity gives us authorization into that or where we're supposed to be. And I like that because then that means in the area of where we say we need to find our sweet spot, we find our ebb and flow, we find who and what we are, and then we can walk in that authority and that authorization of who and what we are and be the best version of us that we can be.
yeah. Because I even think like to there's a lot of movies that are out there based off of identity. A lot of
Mhm.
them. And if I think like it's a goofy movie, but Freaky Friday, for example, when the daughter switched bodies with her mother, she still looked like her mom. She looked like her mom. But she didn't act like her. There was still an there was an off-putting switch to that because
Yeah.
while she looked like that person, she wasn't that person. So it kind of gives that sense of awkwardness to like, okay, well, you look like this person, but you're not acting like this person. You don't have
Mhm.
those same keys. It's different. Um, there's been occasional times where uh, mom's texting me. She's like, "Hey, are you doing okay?" It's because I'm acting different. There's something off-putting to her. Something about my identity. Something about what labels me as me is off, and she's trying to figure out like, "Hey, what is going on? What is causing this deviation in uh, in who you normally are?" And I feel like that could even be placed to the same thing with like with God and us. Whenever we fall short, mess up, he looks at us and he goes, hey, what's going on? There's something different. There's something off. the same that same connection that I had isn't it's not the same. There's something weird here. What's
Mhm.
changing that? It's that question right there. Um, and I still wrote further about it. I elaborated, just saying like I couldn't just walk into the White House and start barking orders. I probably wouldn't even make it across the front lawn. uh, can't
Mhm.
walk into Area 51. I can't do any of that because my identity isn't allowing me that access. Any military base that I've gone on, I've had to show my military identification. They've had to scan it into a system so that they know this is this person. His identity, like the label here, this card here matches him.
Mhm.
Um, it's 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 a key. I also wrote down a couple other things about it. Um, I said it was just more. It was more than a key. Um, but there was a couple of other things I wrote. Let's see. I did write from birth. We are given a name. We are given a label. We identify ourselves from. It's a way to identify ourselves from others. We all have unique faces, personalities. All of it is unique to itself, and we base our entire lives around identity. Identity. Identity is a label. It's a key, and identity is also changeable. Um,
Would you say that identity could also be a false label?
I can, yeah, because like I said, um, there's been multiple times to where I've been I've been told this, this, and this, and I was like, I don't believe that. Like, little when I was a little kid, like yeah, there were elementary school kid when I was in elementary school or middle school, kids running up to you, kids run up to me saying, "Hey, you're stupid." I'm not stupid. That's a false label. Um, that's a false statement, a false characteristic placed within
Mhm.
an identity. And I feel like a lot of people get identity and characteristics misconstrued a bit. Identity is one thing. I feel like, well, let's see. I wrote this one down too, but I apologize. Um, it's not on this one, but wrote down that a lot of people get identity and characteristics confused. Identity is the main label, but characteristics are the building blocks to that label. You
Mhm.
could get like a Lego set, a toy car Lego set. I bought Brianna one for her birthday one time, that little Ferrari one, right? If she were to dump all those Legos together into one big pile, that's not a car. It's not a car. However, it has the characteristics and the ability to become a car. It is not a car in that moment. She had to sit there piecing it all together and reading the directions and forming it into what she wanted it to be to make it into the car that was labeled on the box.
Mhm.
That's what she did. If I were to go back home and take it all apart and set it in that pile again, it would no longer be a car. Um, and even if I labeled it like, oh, that's a car, oh, it's an airplane, it's not. It's right now just a pile of different characteristics that can make it such, but it's not at the moment. Um,
So
but
basically, what you're saying outside of that is that everything, our characteristics, our integrity, our jobs, our parental aspect of who we are, these are all building blocks to that final aspect of identity. And I
yeah,
lead on that because a lot of times when I ask people, even when I interview them and I say, well, who are you? And they say, oh, I'm a doctor. Oh, I'm a parent. Oh, I'm a prophet. Oh, I'm no, because all those things are just gifts. They're
there,
added pieces to the puzzle. It's like you said, that big erector set or that big what that big building set that you got my daughter. All those were
yeah,
pieces
Legos, yeah,
until they were put together to create that one idea, that one thing that it was supposed to be. And so that is where so many people are trying to find out who and what they are, putting those pieces together. And they're not getting all those pieces. They're
yeah,
identifying themselves with those pieces and using those pieces to identify themselves, not
Yeah.
not like the foundation of what it's supposed to be, the final thing. It's supposed to be a car. Oh no, you still got five pieces over here, but they're identifying themselves with an incomplete process or an
Yeah.
incomplete foundation.
Yeah.
So, what I was looking at, because you've said a lot in the aspect of, and a lot of the questions that I've had, but one of the questions that I wanted to ask you, because there was a point in your life where you had to find that process or that change of your life that moved you or caused you to want to thrust forward, when you realized and understood who you were and understood that you were putting those pieces together to become that person that you're supposed to be that best version of you that you could be. When what do you realize when that was, and do you realize how that came about?
Um, I feel like there were multiple moments. There's been multiple moments. Like I've changed so much from when I was a kid to like now. I remember being a little kid wanting to be a storm chaser. I'm pretty sure you remember that very solid part of my life. I'm watching these guys drive in the Dominator. I think that's what that vehicle was. It was
Yeah.
red. It had all this armor on it, and they could put it right under a tornado. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I'm like, I want to ride in that. I want to drive that. Like I want to do all that. And then
Mhm.
when you were telling me when you became a police officer, I wanted to be a police officer because I was looking up to you. I'm like, look at him, look, he's strong. Like he's carrying the like. I brought your bulletproof vest home one day. And you were like, hey Tanner, punch this real quick. And then you're like, as hard as you can, hit it. And I hit it, and I was like, that's tough. And you were like, hold it. And I picked it up. I couldn't even put it on. I felt like David trying to put on Saul's armor. I'm like, oh my
Mhm.
goodness. I'm sitting there holding on to it. I remember going to the um I remember going to I forgot what store it was. I know it was a gun store, but they had a riot shield there. And you're looking at ballistic plating. I'm sitting there playing with the riot shield because I'm like, this is cool. I don't know if you saw me or not, but I'm sitting there playing with the riot shield, trying my best to hold it up. And I'm thinking like, these guys are carrying huge shields like it's nothing. And this is a ballistic shield, mind you. I'm like, they're carrying it like it's nothing. This is heavy. And from a little kid, like, yeah, I aspired to be able to carry those shields. I aspired to be tough, strong. I was looking towards all that. I'm like, one day I could do this. One day I can wear that vest with no problem at all. I'm be able to carry that vest. One day I could be just like my dad and be awesome, pulling people over, kicking in doors, doing all that. And then I was looking at it as I grew up, and I'm like, I can be so many other things too. Like I still, like I said, I have a lot of characteristics from you. Um, and I kept changing what I wanted to be. I went from wanting to be a police officer to a Marine. Brianna gave me a little picture I had or something where it said I wanted to be a Marine in my old handwriting. And I'm like, I feel like I remember writing that. And then it changed from wanting to be a Marine to a car designer. And I wanted
Mhm.
to be a car designer for the longest time. And then it went to from being a car designer to being a writer. I've still held on to wanting to be a writer for the longest time. And I remember in middle school, especially around my writing, I wasn't getting good grades in my writing classes. I remember that. Uncle Datavio will always bring that up. He'll always be like, yeah, you remember why I was upset with you in middle school? And I'm like, yeah, because I was getting a D in my writing class. And you're like, yeah, but you're a phenomenal writer. I don't know why that was happening. Um, and then even in college, like, yeah, I'm getting good grades in all my classes. However, I this is one of my most specific moments because I know I've been kind of walking around the question a little bit. But college is one of my more profound moments where I remembered a direct switch just because it's so close to me. But
Mhm.
as I was writing, um, I was sitting there thinking, I'm like, I want to push more emotion into my writing. I want to change the way that I write. I'm tired of being so scared to write this way or that way because I fear judgment, because I fear that people are going to look at the words that I put on this page and ask me like, "Hey, what's going through your mind? Like, are you okay?" And it's like, "No, I'm just putting my emotions there." And
Mhm.
I like some of my biggest inspirations for writing were, of course, Grandpa Peppy, you, And also artists that I listen to, like J. Cole, Kendrick Lamar, a couple of Joyner Lucas's songs, like, and I realized some of their more popular songs, even Mac Miller, some of these great artists out there, they write from their heart. They write from a very emotional state. And I there was a line that I remember. Basically, this one rapper was saying that heart people with the broken hearts uh, become rich. They become
Mhm.
they get money, and then they use that heartbreak to write. Like uh, he said something about like heartache makes for good music, and I'm like, that's very true because a lot of like J. Cole's 2016 album stemmed from the Michael Brown shooting. But
Mhm.
it was a very emotional album. And I was sitting there, I'm like, that was a popular album. So I took that into thinking, if I take my writing and I stop holding back, because there were so many times I was writing a scene or writing a poem, and I'm like, I don't want to say that because somebody might look at me weird. Somebody might look at me different.
Mhm.
And eventually it was the fall semester just recently, 2021. And I was like, I don't care anymore. I'm going to write what's on my heart. I'm going to play with the words, and I'm going to pull at heartstrings like no other. I don't care. I'm going to make sure that I'm getting my point across in a creative manner while on while while on top of that entertaining people like I want to do.
Mhm.
And my professor came up to me after the spring semester, and she said, "Tanner, you've had such an insane growth in your writing in the past couple semesters. Like, I'm not saying that your writing was bad before, but because it wasn't, it was amazing. However, it's taken such a significant jump, and it's astonished me the growth that you've had. I listen to your words, I read your writing, and I sit there in awe at just what you put on paper. And she asked me, she's like, what are you doing differently? Because like keep it up, but what are you doing differently? And I told her, I'm like, I'm putting my emotions in it. I'm being raw, I'm being myself. I am not holding back from what other people think. I'm letting myself be my biggest monster at this point. I'll of course always look at my writing and I'll be like, this needs improved, this needs to be fixed. I'm my biggest monster when it comes to this stuff, but I'm letting myself be my biggest monster, and that's it. I'm not letting anybody else skew me or deter me. Whatever I write, whatever I put on paper is what I need to push to the people. Is what I need to push so that people can listen to what I say or read what I say and go, wow, like that was amazing. And that was one of my biggest jumps is that moment. Um, yeah, I'm not trying to trail off anymore. That was one of
So
my biggest jumps.
basically, you can say that your parents, your uncle, your grandfather, they were all kind of prophetic in your life in the aspect of saying, "Hey, you're so much better than what you're putting out to be." Now you
Yeah.
were about to go somewhere, and it was going to grab me before I asked that question, but there was a point in your life that allowed you to or caused you to want to make that change in your life because you realized that we were right. I'm just going to put it this way. So, kids, listen to your parents. Your parents ain't dumb. They're right. They know what they're saying in the first place. But okay, so there was a point where you changed because you
Yeah.
realized that that direction was a positive direction for you. Do you know
Yeah.
when that point was?
Uh, like I said, just fall semester 2021. That's all I really, I can't place an exact day, an exact time, but I can remember sitting there in front of my computer thinking about what my next writing project was going to be. And I'm like, all right, well, I've been trying to dig at emotions with the story that I'm writing anyway.
Mhm.
And I remember I was writing, it was my poetry two class. I know I was writing poetry and I kept deleting stuff. And I'm like, no, no. I mean, I don't really delete things anyway. What I'll do, I'll take a line that I like, but have issues with. I'll copy and paste it to an omitted lines section of my notes, and I'll leave it there. And I won't completely get rid of it because I know it's important and it could be used for something else later. But I'm like, for the time being, I'm just going to set that aside. Maybe I can improve on it. Maybe I could use it somewhere else, but set it aside for now.
Yeah.
And I started doing that a lot more. But I sat there and I'm like, look at all these other artists. Look at all these people who have grown and become famous off of their writing and off these situations. Like Will Smith with Fresh Prince of Bel Air. One of the most memorable moments was when his father left again. And that moment, I know you and I sat there and watched that, and you and I had our own reactions to it, and very similar reactions to it, given our past. Um, Not saying, not for those of y'all who are
Get it?
listening and don't know the path is, he didn't walk out on me. He's always been there. But we do have very similar circumstances, not the same circumstances, but very similar circumstances in our and from being a child to growing up to being an adult. Um, I resonated with that moment a lot. And I know that you resonated with that moment a lot. Very similar aspects, but different aspects at the same time. And it was a very famous moment. It's a moment that gets, I see it on Facebook, I see it on Instagram, I see it consistently replayed. And he stands there, tears in his eyes, looking at Uncle Phil, and he's like, I don't care. I don't care. And I'm like, I felt that before. I know that I felt that before. And he's like, I don't care. And then he breaks down. He's like, man, why don't he want me? Why doesn't he want me? Like, what's wrong? Like, is it something inside myself? Like, what is it? And I know I've asked that question myself before when it comes to my circumstances. Like, I know I've asked that question before. And I felt that moment like in here. And I'm like, there was a moment in time where Will Smith was writing that scene and he sat there and was like, no, it needs to be this raw. It needs to have this much emotion because it's not going to break into the minds of the people that I'm trying to break into unless I put everything into it. And I was sitting there writing and I'm like, all right, yeah, I have like my sad boy poetry where I'm writing about girls and heartbreak and all that stuff. But I'm like, okay, listening to all these songs where it's like XXX Tentacion, for example. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's a late rapper. He passed away. And a lot of his songs were raw emotion. And a lot of teenagers resonated with the fact that it was raw emotion. He said everything that was on his mind, even if it was borderline crazy, he put it on there. And I'm like, okay, even I like have those thoughts to where it's like, no one's gonna care. People are gonna think it's crazy. People are gonna think this, and this. And I'm like, but what if they do? That's the point of writing. It's supposed to show, like, it's what resonated in my mind. I'm like, it's supposed to show the wild side of humanity. It's supposed to show the controlled side of humanity. And it's also supposed to show that split between, to where it's like you're fighting with the devil on one side, the angel on the other. Like, writing is all about that. It's a consistent battle between between emotions. Like every single story boils down to a battle between like good, bad, right, wrong. Like, what choice do I need to make to be able to push through this situation, this conflict? That's all writing is. And I'm like, all right, well, everyone's been through X, Y, and Z situation. What's going to make that writing unique is pushing the emotion that the people go through in that situation. Like, you know that I'm writing a story based on the military. I'm pushing the raw emotions of soldiers in that story. That's what I'm focusing a lot on that. Same thing with my poetry. I'm like, all right, I'm going to focus on my own raw emotions. And I know that's what's going to break through because everyone's stubbed their toe, but can you creatively explain what you go through when you stub your toe? Because if you can, then people are going to read that. People are going to be like, yes, I can relate to that. I can feel that. And it's like, that's such a mundane kind of explanation, but it's like, if we develop on that, everyone's gone through a breakup and heartbreak. But if I can develop on that and show the deep meanings and aspects that I feel so that I can relate to people in a deeper sense, like in here, then people are going to read it more. They're going to want to hear those words and they're going to feel that. And that's what's going to draw them to it. So I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm pushing through that raw emotion. That's what I'm going for. And that's what made that change. Those were the thoughts that were like, that's what's going to make that change in my writing. I can't worry about what other people are going to think. I just need to type. And it's working for me. And I'm really glad with the process.
I will tell you this, that the comment or the statement that you made is not mundane. There is a statement that says that You don't really know unless you walk 1,000 miles in the other person's shoes. And
Yeah.
that's true. You're not going to realize it until you, for instance, there was a point where I was preaching, I was a preacher, I was a youth pastor at Word of Life Christian Center. And
Yeah.
we had we had a guy come in and he said that hey, I I've been shot before, I've been this, I've been that, and I've been this. And the youth knew because when he stepped down and he was done, they looked at him and they said, no, you haven't been. You haven't been shot. And see, people try to carry that aspect with them and have
Yeah.
never walked in their shoes. And I say that because then people understand. That is where I believe he's saying is fitting in that writing aspect because being in those shoes, being in that area, it makes the emotions more raw. And that
Mhm.
being more raw is more authentic. And being authentic is the best version that anybody could ever be in their
Yeah.
whole entire life. And so I've got one more question I want to ask you. And that question is, if you were to say anything to your tribe, to your boys, to your homies, to your generation, what would it be?
Um, Before I answer that real quick, you gave me an idea.
Okay.
You're saying that like they can instantly tell, like, no, you haven't. When that guy was saying that you was shot, all this other stuff, they were instantly saying that, no, you haven't. And that relates all back to identity and keys. If you think about it, it's like, all right, the processes and the steps that you go through give
Mhm.
you the keys to be able to relate to others, give you the
Yeah.
keys to be able to access X and Y and Z emotions, X, Y, and Z feelings. Um, and even though all those keys, like I might have, like, again, my motorcycle keys, for example, you've ridden a motorcycle, I've ridden a motorcycle, but this is a different key. Like if you took your old motorcycle key, put it in my bike, it wouldn't do anything.
Yeah.
It's not going to relate, but you could still relate to the aspect of like, oh, I've ridden one before, like I know. You have to go through certain processes to be able to unlock the keys to relate to people in X, Y, and Z moment. Like you as a police officer have been shot at. Me, I've been shot over. Like
Mhm.
I cannot relate to you in the same aspect that you're that other people, other officers, or other deployed soldiers would be
Mhm.
able to relate to you. I wouldn't be able to relate the same. However, when it goes through like military stuff, I'd be able to relate to a lot of soldiers, whereas a civilian who's trying to pretend to be a soldier wouldn't be able to relate because I've accessed and attained those keys, that identity, the thing that those building blocks.
Mhm.
I've attained and accessed all of those to where I walk like one, I talk like one, I walk in the authority of this, this, and this. And when people ask, "Are you a soldier?" I confidently say yes, and I'm able to show through my actions, yes. Same thing. Like one of my biggest identities that I've been going through recently too is being African American, being half black. Um, Uncle Detavio would always tell me, even you would always tell me, it's not it's not always the visible aspect. I mean, it is, but it's not always the visible aspect. It's also just knowing who you are, walking
Mhm.
in that authority, knowing that you have those keys, that you have those experiences, that you
Yeah.
have that identity, that it's a part of your building block, it's a part of that characteristic.
Yeah.
While you might not have like while you might not have the same tires as this performance car, it doesn't mean you're not a car. While you like it all relates. I might not have those same exact keys that you have as a black man, but I'm still an African American male. Like I've had to go through trying to figure that aspect about myself out.
Yeah.
But to answer the question of what would I tell my friends, that is a good question.
Mhm.
I wasn't prepared for that when you hit me. You hit me with a quick curve on that. But
Always do.
yeah, uh, I would say walk in authority, like um, like Killmonger did. He knew who he was. regardless of if he was the good or the bad guy of that story, he still knew who he was. He thought he was acting in a way that he believed was just and okay. He and if you think about his situation, like he was like there was a there was there was some good within his actions. He just didn't
Mhm.
apply it correctly. Even with Thanos, there's a lot of good within his actions. He had good intent, but the way he acted out that intent was incorrect. But he still walked in authority, knowing who he was. Um, so always walk in authority. Know who you are, regardless of if you don't have all the keys of your own identity. You can't directly tell me like, oh yeah, I am this person, because I can't. I don't know 100% of who I am yet. That's still a pathway that I'm discovering. Stay on that path, walk in authority on that path, and don't let people deviate you from
Mhm.
that. Because that path is very, very important. You've only got so much time, and any deviation off of that pathway that you are set up for, you are missing so many opportunities because it's a sidewalk. If I walk off the sidewalk and still keep going forward, I'm going forward no matter what. No matter what, I am going forward. And all those opportunities on that path that I'm no longer walking on, I come back, I've missed all that. That's all gone because
Mhm.
I'm still moving forward. If I think of my arm as that pathway, if I'm walking forward and I walk off at the same speed, but then I come back here, I've missed all of this, all of this. And that's what God had set up for me, all of this through here. But it's because of that deviation that I missed. Like
Mhm.
if, and of course, God's great. God's good. He'll figure out how to get you to that pathway, to that point that you need to be after that deviation. But you could have been there a lot sooner. You could have been walking in that authority a lot sooner. You could have had those keys a lot sooner. And I I stay strong in that. Walk in authority. Know who know who you are currently. Everything that is you, stay strong in that. And never be afraid to change. Never be afraid to allow changes to occur. Those is big. You need to change. You need to develop. Um, you're not the same person you were when you were 30 years old. You're not the same person you were when you were 35. I'm not the same person I was when I was 20. I'm not the same person I was when I was 10. I am constantly changing, constantly developing, constantly making myself a better person. I wrote a poem about it, basically saying it was an obituary. My professor had us write obituaries. I wrote one to my past self. And I basically was telling my past self, thank you for everything. Thank you for the path. Thank you for all of it. However, rest in peace because I am no longer you. While you are the building block that makes me me, while you are still a part of me in a sense, while you are still layered within me, you are not me anymore. I am a new person. I'm not gonna identify myself based off the trail. I'm not gonna identify myself based off the footprints. I'm identifying myself based on the now.
Mhm.
Those footprints still build me up, lead up to who I am, but I am still me. I've killed off my past self multiple times where it's like, all right, that's a mistake. Kill that off, learn from it, forgive it, move on, and
Mhm.
develop. You
Yeah.
can't you can't become a better person. You can't develop on yourself if you're not constantly trying to work on yourself, constantly trying to change and constantly trying to adjust. It's life is all adjustments. All that's all it is. And if you walk in
So much
authority
in
with
that.
those adjustments,
Yeah, there's so much in that and what you just said, and there's a lot that I like to get forward. You know, they say that the richest place is the graveyard, and it's true in the aspect that the graveyard is where all the dreams die. People take those dreams with them, and those are the
yeah,
people that chose not to be the best version that God created them to be. They got frustrated because they took a detour and they did, but they might have gotten back on track or not, but most didn't because they got so frustrated because they took the detour and they were so far away from their dream that they got frustrated and that dream died, and so the dream died with them, and that's why the
yeah,
graveyard is the richest place to be. um I truly wanted to say thank you. I appreciate you being here. There's
Of
one thing
course.
that we here at Purpose from Pain say, and that is life is a series of choices. You either choose to be ordinary or you choose to be extraordinary. Either way, the choice is yours. Let's choose it today and let's live that extraordinary life. I want you guys to know um, just be the best version that you can be. That's all we ever push for. Identity is a huge key in each and every one of our lives on whether or not we're going to succeed or we're going to be a failure. Do me one favor though, go ahead and smash that subscribe button. At the same point, then share it with a friend or an enemy. I don't care. But if they need to hear it, if they need to grow, send them my way. Send them to Purpose from Pain, and we'll teach them what they need to know on their identity and how to be the best version that they can be. Yo, thank you again. I appreciate it. God bless. This is PD, and I'm out. Hey, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. I hope this blessed you. If you want more, go to the YouTube channel, subscribe, and hey, do that anyway, and then share it with someone that you know so that they can be blessed as well. Again, I hope this blessed you. This is PD. God bless, and I'm out.